Another method that you can actually use is an incremental data replacement. So with this, what you're actually doing is maintaining timestamp information both for when that data was modified and when the last sync occurred. And this allows you to basically modify only records that have been changed. So you're essentially just syncing the changes or the deltas within your data. This is kind of a more preferred approach in that you don't have to completely delete and re-add those features. You can kind of just sync them. It does require a little bit more logic within your Maps engine script, but as far as benefits, at least you're just kind of modifying those deltas. A third approach is actually updating the data directly. So I'll actually be demonstrating that within the store locator example today. And what I'm essentially doing is making changes directly to that vector database table, and it updates the application real time in sub-seconds. So, as soon as I update a store's location or update a store's attribute information, it's instantly available to anyone who's accessing that application. Some things to note for this approach is you definitely want to have some logic and workflows in place to protect changes to that live data. So you might have some sort of process where first you would change a database table that just has temporary records, and then maybe there would be someone who validates the change and then officially approves it before it gets pushed to the production table. Okay, let's quickly go over quotas. So Google Maps Engine has really three types of quota. One is storage, so how much space you'll need, either in gigabytes or terabytes, to store your geospatial data. Obviously, with store locations, it would be fairly low, but if you have additional data you might want to display within your application, it can quickly grow, especially with advanced raster type and terrain data sets. Besides storage, there's two quotas as far as public and private map loads. So a public map load is the total number of Maps Engine loads for a public application. So this is something that where there's no access control on the map, it's publicly accessible and viewable to anyone. And the final one is the private map load. So this would be a Maps Engine load from an internal facing application that actually has access control lists as part of it. Okay, so what actually constitutes a map load? So there's basically four scenarios. One is that a user actually views a map. Second one is that a user views a layer, either because a layer is visible by default when the map appears, or because the user explicitly chooses to view it. So if you've got multiple layers within your map, you might have some turned on, some turned off. As soon as you turn one of those on, it counts as a map load. And this is per session. So if you have the map, one of the layers turned on, it's per user session. So it doesn't count as an additional map load until they actually refresh their browser. The third one is when a user actually makes a WMS request. So this is an OGC standard where you might want to use a Maps Engine map within a third-party application, whether kind of QGIS or other third-party software. One request would count as a map load. And then finally is the Maps Engine layer. So this is part of the visualization library within Google Maps API for Business. And as soon as you add that layer to your application, it counts as one map load. If there's multiple layers within your map, each layer would count as an additional map load. Okay, so when you're considering Google Maps Engine, one of the big things is kind of determining how much quota that you'll need. So basically really simple. There's three kind of techniques here. One is to just leverage website analytics on your website to gather current traffic reports. So whether you're using Google Analytics, Web Trends, or just some sort of logging application for your website, use that as a starting point. From there, you want to actually identify the number of pages that will host your map. So if you only have a few pages within your website that will actually host a Google map that will query Maps Engine, take that into account when you're doing your estimation. Also, as part of this, again, if there's multiple layers within your map, take that into account. So, typically with a store locator, there might be just one or two layers, but depending on how complex it might be, there might be more. And then finally is anticipate growth. Hopefully, you want to increase viewership of your application through Google Maps and through Google Maps engine. So definitely anticipate growth as you're doing your estimation. Okay, so with that, let me bring up the store locator demo. And Dylan, let me know if you can't see this. Hopefully it's...
That looks just wonderful.
Right, beautiful. Okay, so this is a really simple store locator demo that I just put together to show a few things within Maps Engine. One of the first things I want to show is the use of our Maps Engine layer. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, with Maps Engine layer, what we're actually doing is rendering the feature server-side in the Google Cloud. So all these little dots that you see on the screen are actually being generated as tiles and served up to the application. So the real benefit here is that you're no longer having to pull all these features to the client tier and rendering them through Canvas, SVG, or VML type renderers. It's all happening just as tiles like normal Google Maps. So from a performance perspective, this is really kind of best-in-class performance. This is what made Google Maps so popular when it first came out. So you're getting that exact same infrastructure, really quick performance within your application. Besides the Maps Engine layer, which I'll show some code in a second here, I also want to show some features with the Maps Engine API and how you can actually use that to do queries against features. So on the left-hand side here, if I do a search, I'm going to do a search in Pennsylvania. I'm actually using our Google Places autocomplete for this. So again, another part of our enterprise offerings. I'm able to use that to quickly find Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You can select a radius and then run a search. So in this example, what I'm actually doing is using the Maps Engine API to just query features that are within 20 miles of Philadelphia. I'm actually pulling back just those records and displaying them as markers on the map. I then also just show a radius circle again on the client tier. So the benefit here is on the back, in the background, all the little dots you see are actually coming from the Maps Engine layer, and then just those features that I'm interested in, I'm actually pulling back from the Maps Engine API through a spatial type query. For each of these records, you're also able to get attribute information. So you can see here, it'll just show the store name, description, hours, phone, manager. Again, this is just dummy data that I populated before the Hangout today.
I was going to say, Dave, you run a lot of stores there.
I'm a busy man. So yeah, so obviously I multiplied my stores times 500 and didn't change too much here, but you can get the idea, right? Essentially, we're able to quickly view this attribute information. Okay, so with that, why don't I quickly pull up some of the code on the at least the visualization aspect, and then we'll jump over to the administration panel where I'll show how you can actually edit the store data. Okay, so to start out with, what I'm showing here is just a simple HTML page, a few dozen lines where I'm essentially including the necessary JavaScript and CSS libraries and classes. So obviously the most important here is including the Google Maps JavaScript API. And as part of this, you'll actually see some different libraries that I'm including. I have a visualization library, which is where the Maps Engine layer is included in. Places was just for that autocomplete. Geometry I'm using just to kind of create that radius circle and a few other kind of geometry type calculations. In addition to this, I have just a simple JS file that I've created as part of this demo. We'll be able to share this code, so you'll actually be able to go and visualize this or view source after the Hangout and actually see this. So let me just jump to the JavaScript file here. So this is really my main file. I've added kind of some bells and whistles, but as part of it, I basically have some global variables. And when I initialize my map, you can see I'm actually creating my autocomplete box. And then I've got my standard Google Maps, JavaScript API initialization type function. So I'm initializing the map, zooming to the default zoom level. I have my autocomplete being initialized and a few other initialization type functions. One of the key things I want to show is this add maps engine layer. So within this, it just calls this simple function down here. And this is how you can quickly just add a maps engine layer to your map. So all you have to do is create a google.maps.visualization.maps engine layer. You pass in the maps ID. One item to note is that your map ID, when you go to the Maps Engine console, is actually just this part. I don't know if you could actually see this within the Hangout, but I'm highlighting from kind of the beginning here all the way to the 6 at the end. You have to append a 4 at the end, and what that essentially means is that you're getting the production live map as part of your application. So there's just an important note as you're getting to development, definitely